Thank you, Congresswoman Sonia Segura. We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today about your experiences in the Guatemala Congress. What led you to your current position?
Yo vengo
Well,
trabajando
I've been
por
working
ejemplo,
on women's issues
ayudando a las
for more
mujeres
than
hace
30
más de
years
30
now.
años. Yo soy
I'm a
congresista
congresswoman in
mi
my
país,
country,
en
in
Guatemala,
Guatemala,
y lo que más
and
me
what
motivó
most
fue
motivated
la
me
muerte
was
de
the
mi
death of my
esposo y el
husband and
secuestro de
when
mi
we
hijo.
were both kidnapped.
Me
I was
motivó ver que la
motivated
mujer
because I
era
saw that women were invisible in my country
y una
and
mujer
that
muy
women
sufrida,
suffered a lot
una
and
mujer
they
muy
suffered from great
violentada
violence.
y una mujer que
Women
trabajaba
worked
igual
just
que
as
el hombre
much or
o más
more
que el
as
hombre
men and
y
were
les pagaban
receiving
menos.
less pay. I was
Me ha
also
motivado mucho a
motivated
ver las leyes
by
que
seeing the
existen en cada
laws that we
ustedes,
had in our country
porque en el
because the
Código de
labor law
Trabajo de
code
mi
in my
país
country
hay un título donde
includes
dice
a
que el
paragraph that
salario
says that
se le
the
da al jefe
salary
de
is given to
casa,
the head of the
aunque
household,
trabaje
the
la esposa,
husband,
que siempre
even if
trabaja
the
en la
woman
casa,
is working
y
hand
aunque
in hand
trabajen
with
las
him or the
hijas que trabajan
daughters
a la par, por
cutting
tanto
coffee
tienen
beans in
y el
my
salario solo se
country,
le
they
da al
still
hombre.
receive the same
Y el
payment,
hombre
and it went to
irresponsablemente
the
va,
man. The
se
man
lo
always
bebe
takes it,
y
they
las
go
pobres
drink
mujeres
it
no
away,
tienen
and
para
then the
comer.
women don't have anything to eat.
Entonces,
And
eso
so
me ha
this
motivado a ayudar en pro de
motivated
la
me to
mujer
work on behalf
y
of
para que la
women
mujer
to ensure that
participe más.
women were more politically
Eso
engaged.
es lo que me
This is
preocupó,
what
que
concerned
en mi
me.
país no
In
tenemos
my
cuota
country,
de
we don't
género
have gender
para que la
quotas, and
mujer
I
avance.
want women to
Yo
advance.
necesito que la
Women
mujer
need
vaya
to
a la
be on the same
paridad de género,
footing as men,
que la mujer
and they need
avance.
to be able to
Eso
advance.
me es lo
That
que
was
más
what most concerned me about my
ver
country.
realmente la
You can see the
diferencia que
great
existe tan
abysmal
abismal
disparities
entre
between
un
men
hombre
and
y una
women.
mujer.
What has your participation in the Guatemala legislature taught you about the challenges facing women in Guatemala? How do you think they can best be addressed?
Los desafíos son grandes, pero no son
We have
imposibles.
great
Lo que me ha enseñado la
challenges, but they're not
participación
insurmountable.
dentro del Congreso
And what I have
se
learned
puede
by
hacer.
participating
Se
in the
puede avanzar,
Congress is that we
pero con
can
la
do
ayuda
things, we can
de
advance,
otras mujeres,
but only
que
with the
toda la
help of
sociedad
other
civil
women. And
esté
the entire civil
enterada de
society
lo que
needs
sucede
to be
adentro del
aware
Congreso.
of what is
Y
happening inside
afortunadamente
Congress.
ahorita en Guatemala, todos los
Fortunately,
grupos de la
now in
sociedad civil
Guatemala,
están
all civil society
exigiendo
groups are
a los
starting
mismos
to
congresistas,
push
a las
the
mismas
congresspeople
congresistas de ustedes,
themselves, the
a que se trabaje
congresswomen,
más
so that they work
fuertemente
harder
y a que se
and so
trabaje
that they
más
work
rápido y
faster,
con más
that they bring about
conciencia,
greater
con más
awareness,
justicia, con más
justice, and
conciencia
social
social.
awareness.
Eso es
This is very
importante en
important in our
Congress
Congress.
y yo
I
creo
believe that
que no me
at
voy
the
a
end of
ir
my term, that
hasta
ends in a
dentro de un
year and a
año y medio que
half, I
termine
will
mi
not
periodo
go out of
sin que
office
exista
until
la
there is
cuota de
gender
género.
quota.
What have been your most notable achievements as a legislator in Guatemala? Did you face any opposition in achieving them?
Los logros más notables ha
The
sido la
most
ley
notable
contra el
achievements have been
feminicidio y
the
otras formas
law
de
against
violencia,
femicide and
que
other
al
forms of
inicio
violence.
comenzamos
At
dos
the beginning,
mujeres
there were just two of
tratando de
us women
hacerla
trying to
no
push
se nos
this
podía.
law through,
Y
and it
después la
wasn't very
Comisión de la
successful.
Mujer
Following
Congreso
the
comenzó a
Congressional
apoyarnos
Women's
y
Committee and
después
their
se unieron
support,
todas las mujeres.
all
Se
women
olvidaron
joined
las banderas
together. We
políticas
set aside our
y
political
se pasó en
banners,
primera lectura,
and
en
it
segunda
passed the
lectura
first and
y
the
al llegar
second
a la tercera
revision, and
lectura,
in the third
los hombres de mi
revision,
país
the
se
men in
comenzaron
my
a sumar.
country began
Pero
to
nosotros
come out in
formamos
support of
una
it.
cadena humana en
We
la puerta,
formed a
evitando que ellos
human
salieran
chain
y
preventing them
logramos
from
llegar a los
leaving the building,
105
and we were
votos
able
que
to
se
get the
requerían
105
para
votes
que
that
esta
was
iniciativa de
necessary
ley fuera una
to
ley.
ensure that this
Otra
bill became a
importante
law.
ley
Another
que
important
saqué
law
acompañada de
that
otra
I
diputada de otro
sponsored with
partido
another
fue
deputy from
la
another
trata de
party
personas
was against human
y la
trafficking
violencia contra
and
niños y
violence
abuso
against
contra niños
children
menores.
and
Porque
violence
Guatemala
against
antes era un
minors.
paraíso
Because before,
para los
Guatemala
pedófilos,
was a
pero
haven for
actualmente ya no,
pedophiles. But
porque
currently, that is
actualmente
no
ya
longer
existe
the
una ley
case
que
because
castiga
there is a law that
fuertemente con muchos años
strongly
de prisión
punishes
al
with
que
many years
incurre
of
en delitos
prison
contra niños.
those who commit crimes against
Actualmente
children.
también tengo otra iniciativa de
Currently,
ley
I'm working on another
que es
bill
la protección
that
para los
is
niños
to
que trabajan,
protect
porque en mi
children
país
who are
existen muchos
working
niños
because there are
quemados porque
many
hace mucho
children
cohete,
that
mucho
are
fuego
burned
artificial
working with
y se queman con la
fireworks.
pólvora,
They're burned by the
explotan las
powder
fábricas
because it
y los niños
explodes
se
in the
queman y
factories,
nadie
and
les
children are
colabora en
burned,
su
and
salud.
no one is taking care
Mucho
of them
niño
and
que
or their
pica
health.
piedra en canteras
Many
y
children
trabaja
work
con
in
cal
quarries and
y le
work with
salpican en los
limestone,
ojos y hay
and the
niños que han
dust gets
quedado
into their
ciegos
eyes, and many
de
children
de
are
los dos ojos
going
o de un ojo
blind, one
y
eye or
nadie
both
les ayuda
eyes,
después.
and no one helps
Entonces,
them after
esta ley
this.
tendría
So this
beneficiar a
law
todos los
will
niños que
benefit
trabajan
all
en mi
children
país
that work in my
para que los
country to
patronos
ensure that the
les den protección
employers
para
give
laborar.
them labor protections.
Have you ever had to work work to build a consensus among women in the legislature in order to get legislation passed? Was it successful?
Sí, como le comentaba, la
Yes,
primera
as I
ley
was mentioning,
fue
with the
que todo
first
el mundo
law,
decía que no se iba a
everyone
pasar,
said
que
that
era
it wasn't
imposible.
going to be
La
passed, that it
ley
would
del
be
feminicidio y
impossible.
otras formas de
That law
violencia
in the
contra la
fight
mujer,
against
ahí
femicide and other
nos
forms
dimos
of violence.
cuenta de
There
que si
we
nos
realized that
agrupábamos,
if we
que
joined
todas
together, that
formábamos
if all
solo
of
una,
us joined
se
one
podía pasar esa
coalition,
ley.
we would be able to pass
Entonces,
the law.
al inicio fue
At the
difícil,
beginning, it was very
pero fue
difficult,
determinante la
but it was
voluntad de las
a
mujeres
determining
para que
factor
esto
in
fuera un
getting
éxito y
women
se
together to
consiguiera un
ensure
cambio.
that this
Fue
was a success
determinante el
and a
unirnos
new
todas las
law.
mujeres.
It was very important
Fue
for
difícil
all
al
women to
inicio
join
porque los
together.
hombres
It was very
eh,
difficult at the
decían
beginning
que
because
no se iba
men
a poder,
said
que
that they
esta ley era
weren't going
imposible que
to
pasara,
pass
pero
the
sí la
law,
logramos.
but we were able to do it.
How important do you think building coalitions is to achieving overall equality for women in politics? Is it necessary for women to join together across party lines?
Sí, yo creo que es necesario.
Yes, I
Es
do believe it's
elemental y necesario
necessary. It's
unirse las mujeres.
basic
Es
for women to join
importante esa
together.
coalición
It's
femenina
important to have
de
this
género
feminine
dentro del
coalition,
Congreso.
gender-based
Dentro de todos los
coalition in
congresos
Congress. In
latinoamericanos
all
han
Latin
habido
American
experiencias de
Congresses,
este
there
tipo.
have been
Y
experiences
creo
of
que
this
es
type.
necesario también
And I think
porque
it's
las mujeres
also
juntas
necessary
hacen
because
conciencia en el
together
hombre,
we are able to
hacen
make men more
conciencia de género y
aware,
paridad.
more gender awareness.
Afortunadamente ya existen hombres
Fortunately, now
que
we
tienen
have men
conciencia
who are
de
more
lo que es
aware
género.
of what
Muchos de ellos
gender
tienen hijas
means.
mujeres,
Many of them
4,
have
3 hijas
daughters,
mujeres,
3 or 4
quieren un mundo
daughters,
diferente
and
para
they
sus
want to
hijas.
see a different world
Quieren
for
un
their
mundo
daughters.
político para
They
sus
want a
hijas.
different
Yo creo que
political
eso
world
los ha
for their
llevado a
daughters,
pensar
and I think that
diferente
this has
y a
caused them to
tratar de
think
apoyar.
differently
Claro
and to
que son
try to
pocos
support
esos
us.
hombres que
Of
apoyan
course,
a las
the men
mujeres,
who support us are very
porque en
few,
todo América del Sur no
because
podemos
in
tapar
all
el
of Latin
machismo, ni
America,
mentir,
we can't
existe el
lie that
machismo.
there is
Eso
machismo.
está como
This is
enraizado muy
something that
fuertemente
is
todavía
deeply
en los países
rooted
latinos,
in Latin
pero
American
se ha avanzado.
countries.
No
But we
podemos
have
mentir
advanced. We
que
can't
hemos
lie. We
avanzado.
have seen great
Lentamente,
progress.
pero se ha
It's been
avanzado.
slow, but we have seen progress.
In Guatemala, do you find that most women are organized around gender issues? How do you rally support for these causes?
Bueno, en las mujeres, allá la sociedad civil
Within
está
the civil
organizada,
society,
tiene
there
muchas
are
organizaciones
many different
de género
organizations,
diferentes.
gender-based
Lo que pasa es que
organizations.
esas organizaciones no
These
cuentan con muchos
organizations,
elementos.
though, don't have a
Entonces, lo
lot
que hay
of
que hacer es
funds, and so what we have to
reunir
do
a
is
todas las
join
organizaciones
all
de
of the
género,
forces of these gender-based
todas las de la sociedad
organizations
civil,
in the
y hacer
civil
un solo
society
cuerpo para que
and make
avance
one
en pro de
body
los
so that we
objetivos que
can
nosotros
focus
tenemos.
on the objectives that we
Yo quiero
have.
decirle que cuando uno las llama,
When
cuando
we
uno
call
necesita
upon
de
these
ellas, que estén
organizations and
dentro
when we
del
need them
Congreso apoyarnos,
to support
han
us in
llegado,
Congress,
han
they've been
hecho
there for
caso
us.
de llegar a
They
nosotros,
have truly
nos
helped
han
us
apoyado
and they've supported
bastante.
us quite a bit.
Existe una ley y un
There is
observatorio
a
que
law
sigue,
and an
le da
observation group
continuidad,
that is
sigue
in
observando
force
todas las
and
leyes de género.
it focuses on
Y ese fue
gender-based
creado por
laws,
las
and this
mujeres.
was created by the
Un
civil
observatorio para
society.
SIDA,
It's a watchdog group
para las
for
mujeres con SIDA,
focusing
un
on
observatorio de
women
salud de
living with
materno
HIV/AIDS,
y un
on protecting
observatorio
minors, and an
tratemos de
observation and
llegar
watchdog
a
group
concluir
that
la cuota de
helps
género,
us
que es muy difícil.
focus on fulfilling gender quotas.
Have you ever worked with male congressional members in order to pass legislation to further women's causes?
Sí, ya
Yes.
trabajé una ley con un
I worked
congresista
on a
que
bill
me
with a
apoyó,
congressman
que es el
who
doctor
supported
Manuel
me,
Valdizón,
Dr.
del
Manuel
partido
Valdizón from
Líder.
the Leader
Él me
Party.
apoyó en la ley que era
He supported me
para,
in the
para el
law
beneficio de las
to
mujeres
benefit
y
women.
me apoyó.
He did
Nosotros
support
hemos
me.
tenido reuniones
We have
últimamente
lately
con
had
hombres
meetings
precisamente
with men,
para
with
hacerles
many different men,
conscientes de
to
que es
help them
necesario
become
que
more
la
aware
mujer
of how
avance,
necessary it
que
is
las
to help
metas
women
del milenio
advance,
tienen que
to comply with the
se acabe
Millennium Development
la,
Goals,
el hambre de mi país,
to
que
eliminate
se
hunger
acabe
from
la
my country,
diferencia
to eliminate the
entre un hombre y una mujer,
disparities
que a
between men
veces
and
te hace
women,
sentir
which
mucho,
sometimes
sobre todo en la
are
parte
felt
laboral.
quite
La
strongly,
mujer
especially in the workforce.
trabaja
Many
igual y
times
no
women
recibe
work just
reconocimiento.
as much as
En un
men and they're
momento
not
de
recognized.
candidaturas para algún
For
puesto público,
example,
la
when
mujer
a woman is
prácticamente no
applying
existe.
for a public
Solo
position,
hay
they're not
hombres.
even considered just
Llegar a
men.
una posición
And to
de
get
una
into a
directiva, por
position
ejemplo, en el
of
Congreso,
power, for
o
example,
llegar a
in
una posición de
Congress,
ministra,
or to rise to the level
hay que
of
trabajar
a
mucho.
minister, you have to
El
work
doble
much
o el
more,
triple que
at
un hombre
least the
para
double or
esos
triple of
peldaños.
what men have to
Y los
work
hemos
to
logrado.
get up the
Nos ha
ladder.
costado
It has cost
sangre,
us blood
esfuerzo,
and death
que
even
nos
to
ha
get to this
costado.
point.
Has it been difficult in Guatemala to ensure that resources are allocated to women's empowerment activities?
Ha sido bastante difícil.
It has
Quiero
been rather
comentarle que
difficult.
nosotros no teníamos dentro del presupuesto de la
Within
nación,
the
no teníamos
nation's
ningún
budget,
regalo
we
para las
didn't have
mujeres.
any
Hasta el año
line
entrante
item for
ya tenemos
women.
un presupuesto
But in the next coming year, we will have a part of the budget for women. It's a very minimal percentage, not very much at all. But within the nation's budget for 2012, we will have a budget focusing on gender-based issues.
Aside from your direct efforts, have you seen any specific instances where gender equality has been promoted through legislation?
Sí, hay muchas instituciones
Yes, there are
que
many
promueven
institutions
por
that
decir las mujeres, que
promote
promueven los derechos humanos de las mujeres,
human rights for
las mujeres
women.
que promueven los derechos
There are women that
de la
promote
niña, que aprenda a leer,
rights of
porque
little
en mi
girls
país
so that they can learn
mandan a
how to
estudiar
read.
a que
In my
aprendan a leer los
country,
hombres.
the little
Pero
boys
las
are the
niñas
ones
las
that are
dejan en
sent to
casa,
learn how to read,
no
and
van a la
little girls
escuela.
have to stay home. They
Actualmente
don't
ya
go
hay
to
varias
school.
instituciones que se
Currently,
han
there are
preocupado
several
porque tanto la
institutions
niña
that
como
have
el niño
focused on
aprendan a
making
leer,
sure
vayan
that
a la
boys
escuela.
and girls go
Entonces
to
sí
school and
hay
learn how to read.
instituciones que se han
Yes, there are institutions
enfocado,
that have
instituciones
definitely
privadas que se han
focused
enfocado a eso
on
y
this
que nos han
issue,
pedido a
private
nosotros ayuda
institutions, and they have asked
para
us for help
darles clases a los niños,
to give
para
classes
ir
to
a áreas
children
rurales
to
donde
go
no se
into
habla
rural
casi nada de
areas where
español
not
y
very
les
much
ayudar
Spanish is
a los niños y a
spoken,
las
and to
niñas para que
help boys
entiendan
and
los padres
girls be able
que
to
tanto
learn
el
and
niño
make
como
sure
la
that
niña
parents
tienen los
understand
mismos
that boys
derechos y
and
las
girls have the same rights and obligations.
And what do you find most rewarding about what you do?
Pues yo creo que lo que me da satisfacción, en primer lugar,
I
que
think
el
that what gives me
sistema
great
político en mi
satisfaction is to
país ha
see that
variado.
the political
En
situation
segundo
has
lugar, lo que me da
changed in my
satisfacción es cuando
country.
miro a una
I also
niña que
get
ya
great
aprendió a leer
satisfaction out of seeing a
y
little girl
sobre
that has
todo
learned how
más
to read.
satisfacción
And I get
ver
greatest
que las
satisfaction
niñas
also out of
ya no
seeing
son violadas
that
como antes,
there's not those
porque en Guatemala
incidences of
existen
rape of
muchas
girls
violaciones
as we used to see in the
y ahora
past.
eso ya no existe.
This is something that
En
we
el
just don't
tiempo de
see
la guerra,
anymore.
un
During the
producto muy
war,
dolido,
we
muy
saw
sufrido
something
eran
that
las
was really
mujeres.
terrible. There were a
Y
lot
ahora
of
eso
rapes,
ya, la guerra ya
and women
terminó.
suffered a lot. And now that the
Tristemente dejó
war is over,
245 personas
unfortunately,
y entre de
245
ellas estuvo mi esposo.
died, and
Pero ya eso
among
ya
them my
terminó.
husband. But that is
Ahora ya
over
hay
now.
democracia
Now
y la que el
there's
pueblo de Guatemala,
democracy,
sobre todo
and
las mujeres,
the people of
tenemos que cuidar.
Guatemala and the women
La
must
democracia
protect this.
no está muy
Democracy
consolidada.
is not yet
Entonces
deep-rooted
nosotras
in
las
our
mujeres sí
country,
estamos
and so
atentas a
we
proteger la
women must be
democracia.
focusing on protecting
Gracias a Dios hay
democracy. And
instituciones
thank God there are
internacionales que
international
colaboran con
institutions
nosotros, que
that are
nos ayudan
collaborating with
a
us and
tener
helping us to
programas,
create
a tener
programs and to give
asistencia,
us
a tener
assistance and
seminarios
seminars to
para que las
ensure
mujeres
that women
entiendan que tienen
understand
que
that they need to be
participar, que tienen
engaged
que
and that they need to make their
democratizar.
country more democratic.
What advice do you give to women who want to become advocates in their communities?
El principal consejo es
The
que se
most
preparen,
important thing is for women
que
to
se
prepare
preparen
themselves and
políticamente,
educate
que
themselves
vayan a los
politically,
seminarios que
go
son
to the
supuestamente
seminars
más
that are
gratuitos,
offered
que
free,
se
that they
preparen
get
para llegar,
prepared to be
que
able to
peleen por
arrive
su
at that
posición
position, to fight for their
y que
position,
ayuden,
and that they would
que todas las
help
mujeres nos
other
unamos,
women to
porque en mi
join
país el
forces,
50,
because in my country, 50 to
52% del voto es
52% of the vote is
femenino.
women.
Entonces, que
And so
exijan
these women need to
esos
demand
derechos
the
que nos
rights that we
corresponden
are entitled
y que
to.
exijamos
We
la
also need
cuota
to
de
demand
género
the gender
que es tan
quota that is
necesaria
so
en mi país.
necessary in my
Porque en los
country,
países
because in
centroamericanos,
Central
casi
American
todos los de
country
habla
and most
latina,
Latin American
si una
countries,
iniciativa no se vuelve ley,
if an initiative does not become a law, it's not respected.
What do you think needs to be done to increase women's participation in Guatemalan politics and in politics around the world?
pues en primer lugar que la mujer
First,
deje de
women must
pensar
stop
que es
thinking
ciudadana de
of
segunda.
themselves as second-class
En segundo
citizens.
lugar,
Second, we must
incitarlas
encourage
y
them and teach
enseñarles
them
de
to
que
have
tienen
skills,
capacidad
and
y
must
de
teach
que
them also
merecen
that
ser
they
candidatas.
deserve to be
Porque muchos
candidates. In many
países todavía
countries, there
están
is
con la
still an
idea de que
idea
ellas no
that
merecen
women
tener
don't
la
deserve to have the same
misma
prerogative as a
prerrogativa que un
man.
hombre. Y
And
eso
this
es
is
lo que
what
realmente
international
los
organizations are
organismos
helping us
internacionales
with.
tienen que ayudar
They need to
para que
help
la
us
mujer
to
entienda
make women
de que se tiene
understand that they
que
need to be
preparar
prepared and
para
educate
alcanzar el
themselves to
objetivo que
occupy that
Yo entiendo que
position.
los espacios
We
deben de
must
ser
work hard
trabajados
for it, and it
y
is
que
very
cueste
difficult for
también,
women,
pero también
but
entiendo
women
que la
should not
mujer
be
no debe de ser
used.
utilizada,
Women,
sino que la
on the
mujer debe de
contrary, must
realmente
truly be
estar
where their
donde su
skill
capacidad lo
places
merece
them.
estar. Y
And that's
para
why
eso hay
we
que abrir
need to
espacios
create places for them
sociales,
in society. And women need
mentales,
to have a more
de
open
preparación de
mind.
todo tipo,
Women must
para que la
truly
mujer
be
esté
prepared to
realmente
acquire and
preparada para
educated
adquirir
to
esos
fill that
derechos.
void.
Thank you, Congresswoman Segura. Your experiences are an inspiration to the Women's Democracy Network members. And again, thank you for speaking with us today.
Gracias a ustedes por
Thank you
apoyarnos
very
a
much
nosotros.
for supporting women. Thank you.